Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. As always, the GSMC Football Podcast is brought to you by the great GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kayvon, coming at you on a jam-packed Tuesday. Thank you for listening to us. However you're tuning in, wherever you're tuning in, and whenever you're tuning in, we really do appreciate you making us a little bit a part of your busy day. It means so much. Leave us a comment, leave us a review, hit me up on Twitter at Kayvon_sports. Tell me how much you love me, tell me how much you hate me. Either way, I will respond, and I definitely will give you a shout out on the show. What a day. What a day we have today in the sports landscape. What an NFL weekend. I mean, awesome games all around, capped off by the greatest game of the 2020 season and arguably the greatest game in the last, 4 years. What comes to mind when you think of all-time Monday night games, you think of that Chiefs-Rams game a couple of years ago where it was on Monday Night Football. That was when the Rams went to the Super Bowl that year, and that was Mahomes' first year as a starter. Both teams were lighting it up under McVay, under Andy Reid, Mahomes, Jared Goff. Both teams went for 1,000 yards. Well, we had something special on Monday night as well. 12 total touchdowns, ladies and gentlemen. 12 touchdowns in the game, 9 of which were running touchdowns. I mean, it was just back and forth drama. Lamar leaves, Lamar comes back, Lamar plays Superman. It was seriously one of the best games that I have seen in a long time. And it was a love-hate relationship for me. It was a love-hate feeling for me because, one, I was very happy to watch an amazing football game. I am a sports fan. I love football. And I will take any type of game like that any day of the week. Any day of the week. And I will stay up and I'll be tired the next morning, but I won't care because I'll be happy that I stayed up and watched that game from start to finish. So that was the happy side. The other happy side was I had Lamar and the Ravens as a bet. So very happy there because they ended up covering on a very bad beat for the people that bet the Browns. Last second kickoff. Browns, have nothing they can do but try and do the whole lateral 50,000 times and get lucky to maybe run it back somehow. Well, they were doing that, and the ball, like it always ends up doing under these circumstances, goes back into their end zone. Safety. Ravens end up winning by 5 instead of 3. I cover. Great for me, bad for a lot of other people. But I would have rather traded that than what happened to me. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this was the worst fantasy beat of all time. And not only does it suck that I lost in fantasy in the playoffs, was supposed to be going to the championship, not only was I the best team in this fantasy league from start to finish, finished first place, but what makes it even worse is that I lost to my good friend, my arch rival, B-Ray. B-Ray. I lost to him. And nothing makes me more mad than losing to that guy. Because he won't shut up about it. which I don't blame him because I wouldn't shut up about it if I beat him. But listen to how I lost, ladies and gentlemen. We go into Monday night, and I have exactly an 8-point lead, okay? But it's 8. It's like 8.2. It's something like that. He has, all right, so I have it up in front of me here so I can read it off right. So he had 197.66, and I had 206.1. So I was up by 9 points. Well, I was up by like 8.5, right? So if he got 9, he wins the game because we both would have 206, but he would have 206.66 and I would have 206.1. So really I had to get him to 8. He had to get only 8, and he had Justin Tucker left. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, now you all know what happened. He had the Baltimore kicker, Justin Tucker, left. Well, I'm already worried because Justin Tucker, great kicker. We're going into Monday night. B-Ray's trying to play all this reverse psychology bullcrap on me where, oh man, I have no chance of winning. You're going to beat me again. And I'm sitting over here like, this guy is setting himself up. He knows what he's doing. He's a little sneaky mastermind guy that he is, and he bugs me, man. He bugs me. So we're going into Monday night. I'm not talking to B-Ray. Okay, I don't want anything to do with B-Ray right now. And the game kicks off, and it's a high-scoring game. I mean, back and forth, but I'm loving this. You know why? Because every single touchdown, Justin Tucker just has to kick an extra point, which is just 1 point. So I want Baltimore to keep scoring touchdowns. I do not want them to get stopped for field goals. Only touchdowns. Score 7 touchdowns for all I care. That's only 7 points for him. Does not matter. I do not want him to score field goals. Well, it's going my way. I mean, so far, it's been 4 touchdowns, 0 field goals. So he has 4 points. Justin Tucker has 4 points. So I'm winning by 5. It's in the fourth quarter. Baltimore then scores 1 touchdown, right? So that's 5 touchdowns. This is when it starts to get jinky. Justin Tucker goes to kick the extra point, and it gets blocked. So I think, let's go. That's -1 because it's a missed field goal. It's a missed extra point. Well, I go to look, and this league that B-Ray is the commissioner in, I must add, does not do -1 for blocked. It's only for missed. Well, what's the difference, huh? Both is a miss, but no, the kicker actually has to miss it on his own. Ridiculous. So right then I start saying, oh my God, this is setting me up. So then I start to feel a little bit relieved, right? Because I'm up 4 points. Lamar leaves the game because we'll get into that in just a little bit. He leaves the game, so I said, let's go. He's gone. They're not going to be able to score much with Tracy McSorley out there. But I also had mixed feelings going on because I wanted the Ravens to win the game. Well, we get with about 2 minutes left, and the Browns are playing great football. Baker's looking the part. He's really, Kevin Stefanski is dialed in. Man, that guy is a great coach. And we're going to get into all of this game, guys. I just have to express this story real quick. And we're 2 minutes left. The Browns go down. They take the lead. And then the Ravens have to come and score on this drive or the game's over. And again, Tracy McSorley is still out there, the quarterback from Penn State. Well, they get down to about the Browns 40-yard line. I think it was like maybe the 45-yard line, 50-yard line. So they're down 1 at this point. Okay? So I said, oh my goodness, it's 4th and 5. It would be like a 62-yard field goal. And I'm like, Lamar's not in the game. They're going to kick this field goal right now. And they're going to win the game. And I'm going to lose. They're going to win the game by 2. I'm going to lose my bet. And I'm going to lose to freaking B-Ray in fantasy. Well, Lamar comes heroically everything but a cape on pretty much, out of the locker room, IV bandage, on his arm. You could totally tell that he was just getting fluids pumped into him because he's been cramping all night. He comes in. It's a must score. It's a must convert on 4th and 5. Like, you have to convert this or the game is over. And what does Lamar do? He doesn't just convert it. He scores a touchdown. He throws a wide open pass to Marquise Brown. Touchdown. Again, we're going to get into all of this in depth of the football side of things. So then I'm like, okay, wait. They have to go for 2. So no extra point here. No point for B-Ray. I'm like, let's go. This is awesome. At this point, there's only like a minute left in the game, right? So they go for 2. They get it, which puts them up 7. It's about, a minute, 20 seconds left in the game. And I said, I'm up 5 points. The Ravens are now up 7. I'm sitting here beautiful, baby. I'm going to win my bet. I'm going to beat this freaking arch rival of mine who I also love as my great friend B-Ray, but I want to beat him. I got to beat him. And I'm like, let's go. I am sitting there happy. Well, little do I know that the Baltimore Ravens D is completely inept, and they cannot stop a fly if they wanted to. They let Baker Mayfield and the Browns drive right down the field, and I want to credit the Browns and Baker Mayfield because it was great execution on that offensive side of the ball. But come on, Baltimore defense. They drive all the way down. They score a touchdown. They tie the ball game up 7-7, and there's 30 seconds on the clock left. And I kid you not, I pick up my phone and I text B-Ray some words that I cannot say on air right now. And I said it exactly. I said, B-Ray, you just won. Watch what is about to happen. I promise you, Lamar and the Superman hero that he is going to drive the Ravens down all the way to about the 40-45 yard line, and freaking Justin Tucker is going to come out and he is going to drill a 55-yard field goal with 0 seconds left on the clock, and you are going to beat me in fantasy to go to the finals. And you are not going to deserve this win. I told him, I said it just like that with a lot more language that I cannot say, but that was the gist of the text. And of course, B-Ray, trying to be this mastermind reverse psychologist genius that he thinks he is, he doesn't respond, right? Which makes me even more mad, right? I want him to respond and say, yeah, I'm going to beat you, haha, or at least do the thing he always does. Are you kidding me? There's no way. No, but what does this guy do? He doesn't even respond. Oh, so I'm sitting here, I'm walking back and forth. At this point, it's like midnight. I need to get to bed, but I can't. I'm going crazy. I'm walking back and forth. I'm looking at my phone. I want to throw it at something. I want to break my TV. And as I slowly see the Ravens first down, drive. Oh, past half field. Oh, on the Browns side of things. Oh, 12 seconds left. Oh, 7 seconds left. Spike the ball. Justin Tucker comes out, kicks the field goal. Game over. Kayvon's fantasy season over. Just like that. It was literally the worst fantasy beat of all time. And you know what makes it even worse? B-Ray has a brother named Drew. Okay? And Drew's in our fantasy league as well. And I snapped Drew and I said, Drew, did you just see what happened? Did you just see how I lost? And he goes, yeah, I did. B-Ray woke me up because he was screaming so hard. That guy goes and just gets so excited. And he wakes his own brother up. And he wins. And he wins. And I'm going to have to hear about that forever. And it was the luckiest win in the history of fantasy. And that's just my luck, ladies and gentlemen. That is just my luck. So I wanted to tell you this story because you might not like it. You might like it. I don't really care because I needed to talk about it. Because it was really weighing on me. I mean, I had a problem working yesterday because I couldn't get it out of my head. So that's where I stand. It is not a great week for me. Now, luckily, I'm in a couple other fantasy leagues where I did make the finals. Otherwise, I'd be a straight-up mess. If that was my only league and I was out and my fantasy seasons were over because of that, I would be a mess. I still am a mess. I'm still very mad. Look, fantasy is the real deal here. All right, we take this stuff serious. This is for money. This is for bragging rights. And it's not only that you lose. See, if you lose in fantasy, you want to lose to someone where you're like, it's all right. They deserve that win. They're probably not going to talk much trash about it. But when you lose to a guy like B-Ray, ladies and gentlemen, I know you don't know B-Ray, but you might know him a little bit for how much I talk about him on the show. B-Ray is a Patriots fan. That's pretty much all I need to say. So, he's always winning when it comes to his sports team. He hasn't really endured this year what a losing NFL season is like for like 20 years because he has the Patriots fan. And he's a guy that will not stop talking about this. 10 years later, we'll be hanging out with our kids, my kids and his kids, and we'll be at the park or something, and he'll tell, my little Johnny and his little Susie the story of when he beat Uncle Kayvon. I guarantee it in fantasy. And that sucks. That really, really sucks. So now he's playing our buddy Brendan, and I am all in cheering for Brendan. I mean, I'm going to be giving Brendan fantasy advice. I'm going to be his freaking second manager over here on Sunday so that Brendan beats B-Ray. That is my story of the day. I hope everyone's having a great day themselves, though. I hope your weekend went a little bit better than mine. I hope you guys enjoyed your football. We have so much to talk about. I cannot wait. So I'm going to open up segment number 2, talking about the game that we saw last night, because I really want to use that entire segment to talk about that game. And I'm going to focus first on Lamar and the Ravens side of things, and then I'm going to switch it to the Browns side of things, because both sides need to be talked about. It really was an awesome game all around. The players deserve credit. The coaches deserve credit. It was a meaningful game, which is great. Both teams are fighting for a wild card spot. Both teams are fighting for the playoffs. The Ravens, they have to win out pretty much to make it. So if they lost this game, their season probably would have been over, or it would have been very, very challenging to make it. I mean, this is how good the AFC is, ladies and gentlemen, this year. The Ravens could go 11-5, and they might not make it. Or the Ravens are going to go 11-5, and a team like Miami or Indianapolis who go 11-5 or 10-6 might not make it. Because remember, the Ravens have the head-to-head over the Colts because they beat the Colts. The Browns have the head-to-head over the Colts because they beat the Colts. So that's going to be interesting when that comes into play. I mean, all of these games now are so crucial. And the reason why the Ravens are set up in such a good position, because their schedule is as easy as it could be these last couple of weeks. They just beat the Browns. Then they have the Jaguars at home this weekend, this coming Sunday. Then they have the Giants at home, and then they go to the Bengals. So their last 3 games are Jaguars, Giants, Bengals. They shouldn't just win all of those games. I think that they're going to dominate those games where they head into the playoffs looking like a very scary team. A very scary team. I would not be surprised, if a lot of you guys have Lamar as your quarterback for fantasy and he hasn't been doing great all season. I know he's been a big disappointment. If you held on to him, he might win you your fantasy league, because he went off last Monday night here, and then he's most likely going to go off again this and next week because of the matchups that he has. So I fully expect the Ravens to finish with a 5-game winning streak, beating the Cowboys, beating the Browns, and then Jaguars, Giants, Bengals go 11-5, which looks at, okay, well, what does that mean for the rest of the teams in the hunt? Because we have so many teams in this AFC wildcard hunt, right? I mean, at this point, the Bills are 10-3, and yes, the Dolphins are 8-5, but it looks like the Bills, they're playing so well. They already have won one game against the Dolphins. They do play again, but it looks like the Bills are going to probably secure that AFC East, which means Dolphins will be fighting for a wild card spot. The Bills might even jump into that second seed because of the way Pittsburgh is free-falling right now. So you have the Titans at 9-4. They are in the lead for the AFC South Division crown right now, but the Colts are also at 9-4. And they're tied up. They split the two meetings against each other. So one of those teams is going to win the South. One of the teams is going to be fighting for a wild card spot. You have the Browns at 9-4, the Dolphins at 8-5, the Ravens at 8-5, and the Raiders at 7-6. The Raiders are on the outside looking in. Even if they win out, they're going to have some help. They did beat the Browns one-on-one, but they lost to the Colts on one-on-one, so that's going to be a little bit of an issue with them. They do have the Dolphins down the stretch, so that could be a big factor for them if they can win out and knock out a couple of the teams that they're playing that are in front of them on the way. But the Ravens are still going to need a lot of help to get in. So it's going to be very interesting, right? We'll have to see how things go down the stretch here. Miami played a very good game against Kansas City. I told you guys on Saturday, I said, listen, last week, my best bet was Denver plus 14 against Kansas City. And I said this week, my best bet is Miami plus 7 against Kansas City. It took a miracle. It took a last-second field goal to cover, but it covered, ladies and gentlemen. If you listen to me, I'm making you some money. I'm telling you right. Be smart, be sensible. Don't bet anything you don't have, though, obviously. But I'm on the money this season. I'm having a great, great season picking these games. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dive heavy into the wild Monday Night Football game, a game to remember. But the question is, what does it mean for both teams, right? The Browns look great. The Browns really look like on the up and up. But they still can't get over the fact that they can't beat the older brother, the division rival. Is that an issue? And the Ravens. Are the Ravens starting to turn the corner and looking like that 14-2 team last year? Or is it a little bit of a false narrative because of the teams that they're playing? We're going to dive into all of it right after this. Do not go anywhere. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm your host, Kayvon. We'll be right back after this.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon. Jam-packed Tuesday. Fun weekend of college sports as we now head into Week 15. Week 15, ladies and gentlemen. We made it. We made it. Give yourself a pat on the back. Give yourself a nice sigh of relief because we have had 15 great weeks of football and we get 4 more great regular season weeks, and then we have, 3 more. 3 more regular season weeks, and then the playoffs happen. So we are really just steaming right through got an awesome schedule this week for week 15. I mean, a Thursday night game, divisional battle, Los Angeles Chargers, Las Vegas Raiders, in that beautiful new Las Vegas stadium. Two teams that, Chargers are out of it. Are they fighting for their head coach, Anthony Lynn? I mean, it looks like they like him. I kind of think at this point he's probably gone, but you never know. And Las Vegas, they're still alive, even though they've been slipping lately. They fired their defensive coordinator after Sunday's loss to the Indianapolis Colts. Their defense has not been able to stop anyone. They have good talent on the defense, and the D started out much better, but John Gruden was not happy with it, and I don't blame him, so he fires Paul Guenther, which is his good friend. They promote Rob Malinelli, who used to be the Cowboys defensive coordinator for a while under Jason Garrett. So we'll see if that sparks a change in their defense. Then we have two big-time Saturday night games this week, guys. Saturday NFL football. Can you believe that? Gosh, I love it. We've got the Buffalo Bills at Denver, the red-hot Buffalo Bills, a Denver team who, let's face it, they're not having the season that they wanted, but they know how to turn on sparks here and there. I mean, they really do. They go head-to-head with a Kansas City team, keep it a 7-point game all throughout the night a couple weeks ago. They end up losing, of course, but they keep it entertaining. They play them really close. Then they go and they beat down the Carolina Panthers. I mean, they just... Drew Lock looks like a good NFL quarterback at sometimes, and then he looks atrocious at other times. It should be an interesting game. I like that to be a high-scoring game in Denver. And then the nightcap on Saturday is Carolina Panthers at Green Bay Packers. The Packers right now, to me, other than the Rams, are the best team in the NFC. They're so consistent. They're not getting the praise that they deserve. Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers are on a connection right now that is like any other in the NFL. They're just automatic. Davante Adams is what he's doing with the football, what Aaron Rodgers is doing, what Matt LaFleur has done with that team since he's come in. It's been tremendous, and they are the second best team in the NFC to me, behind the Los Angeles Rams. But right now, they hold that number one spot because they have the head-to-head against the Saints, and the Saints slipped up in a very crucial loss to Philadelphia. That is going to come back and bite them. Because of that loss, now they have Kansas City this week. I don't think New Orleans will get that number one spot back. I think that this spot is for Green Bay to lose now, and I don't see Green Bay losing another game this season. So I think Green Bay will head into the season with the number one seed, which is so crucial this year because only one team gets the bye, which is the number one seed. And yes, there's no fans in the stands, but for teams to still have to go into Green Bay during January it's hard. It is hard to win in Green Bay in January, fans or no fans. You're not used to that cold weather. They are, and that's going to be a crucial win for them if they can hold on to that number one spot. So got a Thursday night game, got two Saturday games, and then got a jam-packed Sunday, and then rounded out with a Monday night game that will not be anywhere near as good as the Monday night game we just witnessed, but it's the Pittsburgh Steelers at Cincinnati, which is a division game, always fun division game, and it's going to be interesting to watch to see if Pittsburgh can get back on track as they have now started to slip and lose two in a row. Speaking of Monday night, let's get into it. One of the best football games that I have seen since that wild Rams and Chiefs game with 1,000 yards of offense that was pretty much, just offense was just, two teams going head-to-head, toe-to-toe, Patrick Mahomes, Jared Goff. It was awesome. But let's look at what we saw Monday night. I mean, could we have asked for anything better? You had everything you needed. You had two divisional rivals, toe-to-toe, two quarterbacks from the same draft class, Baker Mayfield number one, Lamar with the last pick in the first round, right? Two quarterbacks that from the same draft class that are both looking the part right now. Granted, looking the part in very different ways, which is so interesting to me, and we'll dive into that. two teams fighting for playoff spots, two teams fighting for playoff positions, a team in the Cleveland Browns that hasn't made the playoffs since, 2006, I think? It's the longest streak in the NFL, longest playoff drought in the NFL. I mean, what a night of football. It was crazy. It really was crazy. And there's so many takeaways from it. There's so many takeaways from it. But Lamar Jackson and the way he was running the football. And look, he's not a very accurate thrower. I don't know if he's ever going to be an accurate thrower. But when he starts to scramble and essentially play backyard football, because that's what he's doing. When he's running the way he's running, just going in circles around these defenders, running in and out of the pocket, losing 10 yards on a run, but then coming before he can get tackled, coming back up and gaining 30. I mean, he is playing backyard football, and when he's running that way, it's essentially unstoppable. And not kind of, it is unstoppable. I mean, what do you do? The safety, they see him scrambling around, and this was the fourth down play, by the way. He's scrambling around. This is on a game-winning touchdown to Hollywood Brown, but this is after he had to leave the game earlier due to cramps. And I was watching this game, and I truly didn't think he was going to come back in. I really didn't. And I know all the memes out there about how he was taking a poop and this and that, which it's all fun stuff. And we kind of want to roll with that narrative of taking the poop because it's funny, right? But he wasn't taking a poop, okay? He came back for that fourth down play. He had a wrap around his arm where you could tell he just got an IV because he was cramping. And he went in, he got that IV. And then this is what is just remarkable to me. He comes back in on that fourth down play. He hasn't played the last two times the Ravens offense was on the field. So he wasn't loose anymore. He wasn't warmed up anymore. But he just came on in there, one play, had to convert it or the Browns win. And instead of just converting the fourth down, he goes for it all and throws a touchdown to Hollywood Brown. I mean, it was Superman type of stuff. It really was. And, on that play, he starts to take off. And he's going to get the 5 yards. When you start to take off, you just see it. You're like, okay, they're converting. He's getting the 5 yards. But if you're the safety, you got to go try and make a play. So the safety pulls up, and then Lamar stops, throws it wasn't even like a beautiful dart. He kind of just lobbed it up in the air to a wide open Hollywood Brown. And then after that, there you go. They score the touchdown. They go for two, tie the game. And I find this so interesting. We and this is really important. We try and push Lamar Jackson into this traditional quarterback mold, right? We've been doing it ever since he got drafted. And he's never going to be that, ladies and gentlemen. There was a play in the game on Monday night where Lamar had his tight end, Mark Andrews, running a deep route. I think it was in the third quarter. I think it was about 4 or 5 minutes into the quarter. And, he stepped up in the pocket. He avoided the rush. He did everything perfect. And when he went to make the throw, he overshot Andrews by 15, 20 yards. And this would have been a walk-in touchdown, a wide-open walk-in touchdown for Mark Andrews. He was wide open. It's a throw where Lamar should be able to make in his sleep. And he probably has made that throw. Actually, I know he's made that throw thousands of times. But when I saw him miss that throw by that much, I said to myself at that point, he's never going to be that guy that we all want him to be. And ladies and gentlemen, that's okay. That's what I want to be very clear about here. We have to stop doing this as people in the media, and fans too. We're trying to turn Lamar Jackson into this person that he is not. He's not going to make all the throws like a Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Drew Brees or, a Matt Ryan, someone that just sits in the pocket and does that. He's not going to do that. But you know what he is going to do? He is going to be that backyard quarterback who is impossible to defend, who is going to be that electric quarterback who can take it 60 yards to the house in a blink of an eye. And as long as he stays healthy, as long as he has that extra gear where you can run away from people, that's what Lamar Jackson's career is going to be. And at this point, I got to stop criticizing him about not being a traditional drop-back passer. because I don't think he ever is going to be that. And that is okay. And look, I get there are concerns to his game, and we can go through those at some point, but today is not the day to do that. Because he was Superman last night. And he deserves the credit. And it's funny. Like, we try and analyze these QBs so much. And you know what escapes the analysis? Because it's weird. We look at different QBs and we attach some type of characteristic to them, right? We do this all the time, whether it's a cerebral characteristic or a scrappy characteristic or an athletic characteristic or an accurate characteristic. But something that has not been talked about enough when it comes to Lamar, and this was really illuminated last night, and you don't hear anybody say this about Lamar, but how intensely he wants to win. It's probably assumed, but how intensely he wants to win and how fiery he is. Fiery he is when he does something that either leads to a big moment that puts you in a position to win, or when they actually do get the win. Like, I love when he scored, you guys probably remember this, when he scored that rushing touchdown and he just darted the football at the Browns wall, and it hit the stands, it hit that wall and it came back and he caught it, like he just chucked it so hard. I love that type of energy, and I think that's great. I think that there's not a real intimate association with Lamar Jackson's need to win. Everybody wants to win, but he seemingly needs to win. And that needs to be said a little bit more often than it really is. Because I can feel it. I'm sitting there on my couch, I'm watching the football game, and his passion, his energy, it's so electric. You can really tell that it gravitates to his teammates. They fight for him. They love him. That's why last year when he was on that historic MVP run, you had Mark Ingram coming to open up his press conferences, like he's his bodyguard. Like, they love this guy. They go to bat for this guy. And that's something that really showed out to me a lot on Monday night. And I think it's something that I immediately, when I was seeing it, I have my notepad that I put next to me during these games. As you guys know, I've stated this so many times. And I wrote it down. Because it's something that needs to be said, because it's a characteristic that not everybody shows, and it's a very positive characteristic. Something that not all these quarterbacks shows. Everybody's going to state that they want to win, right? Everybody's going to show, that's wrong. Everybody's going to state that they're going to win. Not everybody's going to show that they're going to win, and some people might fake show that they want to win. Lamar intensely shows that he doesn't just want to win, but he feels he needs to win. He feels that he needs to win. He puts that pressure on himself, and for the majority of his career, he has shown up, and he has gotten those wins. Monday night was great all around. It was absolutely great all around. Like, that's the type of game that makes you love watching football, because it's almost like you expect something out of the great players on the field, or at least who we've been told are the great players on the field. And in this case, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Jarvis Landry, J.K. Dobbins, they all fall into that category as well. You're told this guy's got to do this guy's got to go do that, and then they do it the entire game. That's what football is all about. That really is what football is all about. I think it's why we watch some of these other, highly touted players, and let's be real, most of them are quarterbacks. We watch them, we watch some of those other, highly touted players where, again, most are quarterbacks, but others are not. And last night, you got to give Baker his props too. He showed up as well. He really, really did. And with both QBs, with two teams that have so much to play for, show up like that, it turns into a game that we will talk about for a long, long time. And it's certainly the best game of 2020 so far. It really was. And it was fun. You had 12 total touchdowns, 9 of which came from the run. But you know what was great about it? It wasn't a sloppy game. It was a highly efficient game. I mean, there was zero defense played on either side of the ball, right? But sloppy tackles, breakdowns, wide open plays, all that stuff. I know all that was rough. But offensively, it was very efficient. You only had one turnover. One turnover, and that was the interception that Baker threw in the early third quarter, I think it was. And you don't ever see a game with 12 touchdowns and only one takeaway by the defense. That just doesn't happen in pro football. And by the way, the interception that Baker did throw was probably one of the best interceptions you'll see all season. I mean, it was really impressive. It was an incredible play. The linebacker did like a somersault type thing, and he caught it, had the awareness to get up and run after that. It was a very athletic play by that Baltimore Ravens linebacker. But I want to get into this. All right, this is something that really, really impressed me. And, I love after the game or the next day to sit down and listen to coach's press conference. Not the whole thing, but just little things that they say. Same with the players, the highly touted players, to hear what they say, how they act as leader or not. And I want to play a sound that Cleveland Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski said after the game, which, by the way, Kevin Stefanski deserves some serious consideration for Coach of the Year. He has done a tremendous job with this team, with this Cleveland Browns team. But Kevin Stefanski, and it came out right away, we saw this in other games where, Jarvis Landry throws a pass himself. He throws a pass to Odell or throws a pass to Baker, and Baker called in. We saw with Landry did the same thing again last night. He throws a pass, it was completed. You see all these elaborate misdirections and run schemes and movements and pre-snap movements. Like, Kevin Stefanski is doing very interesting things. And you really got to be happy with Stefanski if you're a Browns fan. You have to be. And if I'm a Browns fan, I know you lost the game. I know that sucks. And I know you heard about it. But listen to your head coach. Not try and reach for that whole coach cliche silver lining after the game. I absolutely love this. Here is Kevin Stefanski.
Proud of the guys that they battled. I really am, but I just look at all the mistakes that we made, and then we got to correct them. But, for us to reflect on week 1 to week 13, I don't think we're really in that mind frame.
I love that. He's saying right here, look, proud of the guys. They battled. They did well. But what's the point of us looking back and saying, yeah, in week 1 we lost 36-6. Oh, okay, now it's week 14 and we did, we lost by 5 and it was a tough game. Let's give us some brownie points. No, he doesn't want that. He doesn't want that. And, it's easy to get up there and say, we got our head, we should keep our heads up. We got our butts handed to us in week 1. We showed tangible, palpable growth as we get into week 14. Now we got so close, blah, 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 on the coach speak. No. But the fact is that he wasn't accepting of that. That's what I would love to hear if I'm a Cleveland Browns fan today. He believes this team is better. He truly believes that they are ready to beat the Baltimore Ravens now. Not take steps forward doing that, and he wants to beat them now, and he believes they can beat them now. And that's what they are trying to do. But the fact remains, and you love all that stuff, you love the way they played, but look, we also got to be serious here. We have to say, give props when props are due, but we also have to understand that the fact remains, as much as you love what Stefanski had to say, and he's done one hell of a job, you're still 0-2 against the Baltimore Ravens this year, and you're 0-1 against the Steelers. And you got beat down by the Steelers in that first game. So for all this growth, which has been, again, it's been great. It's been palpable. You can see the growth. It's tangible. They feel like they're winners rather than a team that was a franchise that was always on the precipice of doing whatever is required to lose. It's the opposite now, but still, you're 0-3 against your rivals. And that's one of the first things you'll hear every coach talk about this all the time, right? Especially at the beginning of the season. It's not, look, we can win the Super Bowl. It's not, let's make it to the conference championship game. It's not, let's win 9-10 games. No, it's, let's win our division games and go from there. Let's win our division games. We can steal a couple other games down the road, and then we'll make the postseason. If you win your division, you're in the postseason. That's always how coaches start. And, I think the Browns can get there sooner than later, but eventually you have to get over the hump and beat those quote-unquote older brothers of yours that you have yet to beat. But listen, we're going to dive more deeply into the Browns and piece together Monday night even more later on and what they can do big picture this year. What is their ceiling big picture this year? We'll get into that, but I want to give more attention to the Ravens, okay? We started the show talking about Lamar Jackson. I want to dive a little bit deeper into Lamar and the Ravens. We're going to do that right on the other side. Don't go anywhere. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon. Take a quick break, come back, more of this amazing Monday night game, and then we're going to dive into some more NFL and college football. The last Tuesday night rankings are out. Which team slid? Which team is gaining more and more momentum by the weeks come? We have to talk about this because, ladies and gentlemen, Sunday will be Selection Sunday. Sunday is it. Saturday is the conference championship weeks. Sunday is Selection Sunday. So much to dive into of what the committee did. Don't go anywhere. We'll get all into it right after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast as we enter segment number 3, quarter number 3. 2 more segments to go on this jam-packed Tuesday. Whenever, however, and wherever you're listening to the show, thank you so much for just taking a little bit of time out of your day to checking us out, listening to the show, giving us your thoughts, your ideas. You love us, you hate us. Keep them coming. Seriously, just getting some really, really great content, great comments, I should say, and content from all of you guys and gals out there. Comments, good. Suggestions, been great. And content, too. Telling me what you want to talk about. What you want me to talk about. Things you want to bring up on the show. And we're doing that as we go. We got a lot to talk about. Okay. Now that we're starting to get, 3 weeks left, we're starting to get a real clear idea of who's going to be fired come Black Monday. We all know, Black Monday is the grueling and tough day in the NFL where coaches, GMs get fired. There's always the obvious ones, and then there's always a secret too. Every year, there's always a surprise, right? There's always, okay, we know, all right, these fires have already happened, right? Falcons fired GM and coach. The Jaguars have fired their GM, most likely will fire their coach. The Lions have cleaned house, fired GM and coach, as well as the Houston Texans have fired their GM and their coach. Which was one person, by the way, Billy O'Brien, was both, which was ultimately his downfall. So you get to, we know those are coming. We know the New York Jets firing of the head coach is coming. We all believe that they will keep Joe Douglas, their GM. I think Joe Douglas has actually done a very good job for what he has had to inherit and what he's done so far. I mean, look, Jamal Adams didn't want to be there. He got 2 first-round picks for him. For safety, that's amazing. The draft picks that he has made so far looks like they're going to be very good draft picks. Mekhi Becton, that beast O-line out of Louisville, he looks the part. He has one of the best Pro Football Focus rookie rated grades out of all the rookies. Denzel Mims, the wide receiver you took in the second round out of Baylor, when he's been healthy, he's looked very good. That's big thing of when he's been healthy, though, because he's been injured a lot, but he has looked good. So that's all. We believe Joe Douglas will stay. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, well, how do we know that Adam Gase is getting fired? Like, why would the Jets not fire him already? Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Gase is getting fired, okay? The reason they haven't fired him already is simple. They want to keep losing football games. They do. And everybody knows what happens when you fire a head coach and an interim coach comes in. It brings a spark to the players. It does. Especially a team that's struggling so bad like the Jets are, you get a new coach out, even if the players like the coach that they fire. It does not matter. When a new coach comes in, it always brings a spark to the locker room. It always does. And that will inevitably cause you to win games. And as crazy as that sounds, because we're saying it in a bad way, it's true. And the New York Jets do not want to win games. I don't care what they're saying, but in public, but in private, they don't want to win games. And that's why they are keeping Adam Gase all the way till the end. Adam Gase will be fired. The Jets will most likely go 0-16, and they will get a new head coach, and they will draft Trevor Lawrence. All right, so we know those are the openings. The ones that most likely we feel like will happen, Los Angeles Chargers. Will the Chargers owner be, reluctant to maybe not pull the lever and fire Anthony Lynn? Or does he kind of want to maybe see it one more year out? Anthony Lynn's done a decent job. This year and last year have been a struggle, but you remember he went 12-4, went head-to-head all the way with the Chiefs a couple years ago when he had Rivers, and things have slid off a bit. I personally think that they should let him go. I like Anthony Lynn. He's a good guy, good coach, but now that you know that you've hit on your quarterback, your young star quarterback in Justin Herbert, I think it's best to pair him with someone for the future. Bring in an offensive coach, pair him with Justin Herbert moving forward. Some question marks, Cincinnati Bengals, will they fire Zach Taylor? Zach Taylor's in his second year now. He won 2 games last year. He has 2 wins this year. Now, unfortunately for him, last year he had Andy Dalton, who was on the major decline, and this year he had Joe Burrow when they were very competitive in pretty much every game they played almost. And then Joe Burrow had that very rough injury. So he, because of that injury, will they kind of let him see it out with Joe Burrow for a little bit longer? That's something we'll have to look at. I believe the Dallas Cowboys, they will keep Mike McCarthy. They'll give him a pass this year. Jerry Jones is not someone to pull the trigger right away, so I think they're good. Denver, Vic Fangio. Will Vic Fangio keep his job? I like Vic Fangio. I think he's a very good defensive coach, but can he get things done offensively? Also, though, you could say, well, has he gotten enough help to do things done offensively? What do I mean by that? John Elway. Looks like he missed on another quarterback in Drew Lock. When will John Elway be able to bring in a legit quarterback for this franchise? I mean, these are serious questions that we have to ask because John Elway hasn't been able to get it done. So, Chicago Bears, Matt Nagy, will Chicago clean house? I fully believe they're going to fire GM Ryan Pace. Are they going to let Matt Nagy walk as well? Matt Nagy, if that's the case, he will be highly, highly coveted on the open market. I get it. He's made some rough decisions this year, one of them being playing Nick Foles over Mitchell Trubisky when they started out 3-0. Look, in hindsight, pulling Mitchell Trubisky in that Atlanta Falcons game was the right move, but pulling him for the rest of the games after that was the wrong move. They were just not getting things done with Nick Foles. Mitchell Trubisky was 3-0, and even though they've been playing, lower competition these last couple weeks, Mitchell Trubisky has looked awesome. He really has. He's looked very good. Not turning the ball over, throwing 3+ touchdowns, moving with his legs. He's looked good. He's looked good where maybe it warrants them to give him a 1-year deal. Maybe it warrants them to bring Matt Nagy back. I don't know. Detroit, there's a lot of rumors about them wanting to bring in Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. Could that be something that we see happen? Maybe, possibly. Tampa Bay. Look, Tampa Bay, they're going to make the playoffs, but they have higher expectations than making the playoffs. And let's just be honest. The coaching has been poor. Bruce Arians has been poor. And if they don't make it to at least winning a playoff game, and I would even say making it to the NFC Championship game, we could see goodbye Bruce Arians, income, I don't know, Josh McDaniels, let's say, possibly. It could happen, but for the ones we for sure know, we're going to need a new coach in Detroit. We're going to need a new GM in Detroit. We're going to need a new coach in Atlanta. We're going to need a new GM in Atlanta. A lot of rumors going around about Atlanta with Louis Riddick coming in as the GM. As a resident Falcons fan on this show, I would absolutely love that. A lot of talk about Eric Bieniemy as the head coach. He can't go wrong there. He's been awesome under offensive coordinator under Andy Reid for a long time, working with Patrick Mahomes, working with those weapons he has. He's going to be a great head coach. He personally is not my top choice. If I could make the decision for the Falcons, which obviously I can't, I would more likely go with someone like I like Eric Bieniemy, don't get me wrong. I will not be wrong. I'm just a little bit worried because he has so many riches there in Kansas City. He has so much at his palm in Kansas City when he goes to a team, and any team he goes to is not going to have Kansas City level talent or a Kansas City level quarterback like Mahomes, at least not in the beginning. They're not. So how's he going to, work with that? And again, I think he's going to be a good offensive coach, but I'm very high on a lot of different offensive young minds around the league. That's the way the league is trending, and I've been very high on a lot of those guys. Guys like Joe Brady, offensive coordinator of the Carolina Panthers, was the QB coach of the LSU Tigers a couple years ago, when they won the national championship and had one of the best offenses we've seen in college football. I'm very high on him. I'm very high on Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans, who has really turned around Tannehill's career and has that offense just exploding. Pete Carmichael. Listen, Pete Carmichael is a name that is not mentioned enough. He is in his 12th season, ladies and gentlemen, his 12th season as New Orleans Saints offensive coordinator. 12 seasons as the offensive coordinator. This offense, this year it's been a little bit down, but this offense has been one of the best offenses in the years, in over those 10 years, 12 years. So the fact that he has not gotten a head coaching offer, maybe that worries me because maybe something's wrong. I don't know, but I would love to interview him and see what happens. So those are some names that I think would be great for coaches like the Atlanta Falcons, the Houston Texans, teams that have their quarterbacks or are going to be looking to get rookie quarterbacks and go towards that offensive trend. A guy that I think would be very interesting to pair, you get Terry Fontenot, which is the assistant general manager of pro personnel for the New Orleans Saints. Maybe you team him up with a Joe Brady or a Pete Carmichael. Joe Brady, remember, he was an offensive assistant for the Saints before he went and took that LSU job. So maybe you team some of those guys up so they already have a relationship. I'm hearing a lot about the guy that was really one of the, I guess you could say, the builder, the masterminds behind building not just the Kansas City team, but also the Cleveland Browns team. And that's John Dorsey. Look, we look at this. John Dorsey, he was the GM of Kansas City when they drafted Patrick Mahomes. He was the GM of Kansas City when they drafted Tyreek Hill. He drafted almost all of that roster other than the last 2 years that Kansas City has. And then he goes to Cleveland, and he's the GM that brings in Baker Mayfield. He's the GM that brings in Jarvis Landry. He's the GM that created this offensive line that they have. He's the GM that drafted Nick Chubb. He's the GM that brought in Kareem Hunt. Denzel Ward, the cornerback out of Ohio State. Yes, he drafted Baker Mayfield as well, who looks like Kevin Stefanski might be turning him around. So, there's a lot of rumors about pairing him with Eric Bieniemy since he was the GM of the Chiefs when Bieniemy still is the offensive coordinator, but he was obviously there as well when Dorsey was there. The only thing that worries me about John Dorsey is he clearly has an I don't want to say attitude issue, but a culture issue. There was a lot of rumors and issues going on with Kansas City. He couldn't get along with people. He couldn't get along with the head coach, all that stuff. So he left in. He comes to Cleveland. He can't get along with many people there. He ends up hiring Freddie Kitchens, which ended up, being his worst move possible. But he put together a really good roster. But just that hiring of Freddie Kitchens, really, you can't do that. You just really can't do that. Rick Smith, former GM of the Houston Texans, guy drafted Deshaun Watson. I think that he will be up for a lot of candidates for GM jobs. And, you've got Reggie McKenzie. Reggie McKenzie was the GM of the Oakland Raiders before Mike Mayock and John Gruden took over. McKenzie, they drafted Derek Carr, they drafted Khalil Mack, they drafted Amari Cooper under his watch. So a lot of big name guys out there that are going to be super interesting to see what happens. There's the rumor that if wherever Robert Saleh goes, he's going to bring Mike McDaniels as his OC. Who's Mike McDaniels? Mike McDaniels is the offensive run game coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers, who have one of the best offenses and one of the best run games in the league. So, that's a good pairing. All of this stuff is going to be so interesting to watch as we head down the stretch. So we'll talk about that more and more as we go. We're going to dive into some college football talk in segment number 4 here. We're also going to talk more about the Saints and their loss to the Philadelphia Eagles was so crucial. It was so crucial, and it really has put them in a situation, and it just made me realize once again that I'm right about what I was saying from all the beginning. They're going to be a great regular season team, and come playoffs, it's just not going to be enough. And I'm going to tell you why that is next segment as well. But I want to finish our talk about Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, and that Monday Night Football game. We'll dive more into the Browns, as I said as well. But, we started talking the show about Lamar. And I look at the Ravens, and the one thing that I think is just, it's so unfair to Lamar. While it's on his resume, until it's not, it's here. I get that. And that's how it's going to be. It's going to be a stain that he doesn't play well in the playoffs. And he now has to go back, and he has to play well for that resume, for that stain to come off the resume. You go back to the first Chargers playoff game, the first playoff game against the Chargers a couple years ago. He didn't play well. He was a kid. He was a kid then. You go back to last year against the Titans, he didn't play well. He was a kid. He still is a kid. But you make it to the playoffs, well, you're good enough to make it to the playoffs. Why can't you play well in the playoffs? That's always going to be the question, right? That's always going to be the question. But I think that we should start to give him a little bit more of a pass than we have been. Look, at least until it's not fair any longer, right? You keep doing this, you keep putting all these stats up, winning games in the regular season, and then come playoff time, you keep losing. Well, then that's when we have to start saying, okay, it's not fair to give this guy a pass anymore. But we're way too quick to pull the trigger and just criticize and crucify these young quarterbacks for not winning in the playoffs, when the fact of the matter is they're getting them to the playoffs at least. You know how many teams would die to have a quarterback that could just get their team to the playoffs year in and year out? He's a kid. It's going to take time. And I get that. I get the whole, this is what we have to do. This is how we criticize. This is how we judge our quarterbacks because they're the CEO of the team. But there's a limit. There's a point. And when you're a quarterback that has 27 wins and a total of 7 losses in your entire career, when you're a quarterback that has 60 touchdown passes and 16 interceptions in your young career, you're only 3 seasons in. This is his 3rd season. He hasn't even finished his 3rd season yet, and the guy has 27 wins and only 7 losses. You know how many franchises would kill to have that type of record in 2.5 years? When you're putting up those type of numbers, when you're putting up that much wins, it's okay to take some time. You don't have to win the Super Bowl right away. You don't. It's one thing to start criticizing these QBs early if they can't get you to the playoffs, right? If they have the talent around them, they have the good coach, and they can't get you to the playoffs. That's one thing. It's another thing if he's continuously getting you to the playoffs, even though he doesn't have that much talent around him. Let's be honest. He doesn't. He doesn't have top-tier receivers. He doesn't really even have any wide receiver 1 on his team. Hollywood Brown is a good young receiver, but let's be real. He'd be a number 2 and even a number 3 on some teams. So he doesn't have that number 1 guy, and he's still 20 games over 500. Right? So, and I get this, and I think that if you subscribe to the thought that Lamar, because of his unique throwing style, is never going to win in the playoffs, I get that. You're already putting that thought process in your head, and you're not going to change that. But I think it's unfair. I think it's unfair, even if it proves to be accurate over time. And it could. One day it could. There's something to be said for seizing the moment, connecting the dots, and climbing a little higher up the mountain. And Monday night was one of those nights where you start to connect the dots and get a little higher. You get closer to Everest. You get closer to getting up the mountain against a good team and a very hot team that was rolling in the Cleveland Browns. He was Superman. And there's just nothing to say today negatively about Lamar. And we have to understand, he might not ever fit into the box that we want quarterbacks to fit into. And I'm not just talking about this year. I'm talking about in the postseason. I'm talking about maybe ever. He just doesn't possess that skill set. The right way of throwing the football, his throwing mechanics. Yes, he has unique arm slots, and yes, he can make throws that a lot of people cannot make. And, do things with his legs and scramble and keep plays alive that other quarterbacks would die to be able to do. But there's a traditional, throwing mechanism, to make routine passes without having to think about it. Lamar doesn't have that. And it's evidenced by the throw we were talking about on Monday night. The deep over route to Mark Andrews is something that they run every single game. You see them complete either the seam or the deep over route to Mark Andrews every single game. And Lamar's inconsistent with it. And so he might just never be that guy. But that doesn't mean that he can't be a winner and that he can't win in the postseason and that he can't maybe go on some magical run and get to the Super Bowl. But it's just going to be a lot harder. That's all. And the Ravens are going to have to do a great job surrounding him with the right talent, with better weapons. That's what they're just going to have to do. Because when you think about the box that we need quarterbacks to fit in, that quote-unquote box that we always just try and shove every quarterback into, and if they can't fit into that box in every single specific angle, then we just criticize them. And this is the fact, though. Unless you fit into that box or you have a superstar elite defense, it's hard to say you can win a Super Bowl. And right now, Lamar doesn't fit into that box. But you know what? He is talented enough where he doesn't have to fit into that box. Or you know what? He can fit into that box in a different way. Maybe he'll be a little too big for that box. Maybe he'll break the box. Maybe he'll change the league. And the league is growing more towards his type of running style. And that athletic, electrifying quarterback. They might want to, the league might try and turn that way, but you're not going to find this many type of quarterbacks. You're just not. Lamar is special. Lamar is not a normal quarterback. And again, he can make throws that others can't, but he's just not the traditional thrower of the football. He doesn't have the traditional mechanics that you want your quarterback to have with his arm. But again, it's okay. It doesn't mean that one day he still won't be able to get over the mountaintop, get to the peak of Everest, and win that Super Bowl. Baltimore, it's up to you to keep putting the right amount of talent around him, to get him some better receivers, keep that offensive line good, build up a better defense, which you did over the offseason. It's been slacking as of late. A lot of injuries, I get that. COVID, I get that. But you got to get the defense better, and you got to get him some more weapons, and you have to keep him healthy. If you can do that, then I fully believe Lamar will be able to get that Super Bowl trophy one day. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will dive into the rest of the big-time games that we saw on Sunday. The Saints have really hurt their position to get the 1 seed. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers look like they're locked into the 1 seed right now. What does this mean? Who should be the favorites? And what's going on with the AFC wildcard race? Woo! Let's dive into it all right after this.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon. Hope everyone's having an awesome week. Whenever you're tuning into the show, thank you so much for taking your time out of the day to listen to us, listen to this just awesome voice of mine, right? Sounds so good, sounds so soothing. Hope you enjoy that. And look, as we head into Week 15, big-time fantasy playoffs, lots going on in the fantasy playoffs. Hopefully your experience in the fantasy playoffs was a million times better than mine. I just went through it all in this first segment. Don't need to go through it again. Just know I lost by 0.5. I didn't lose by 5. I didn't lose by 1. I lost by 0.5 because Justin Tucker and the Baltimore Ravens had to just win the game on a last-second 55-yard field goal. Could it be a 45-1? And it was so close. When the Ravens were driving down with a couple seconds left, Lamar Jackson hit Mark Andrews, the tight end, very good tight end, on this out route. And he was running, and he had a good 20 yards ahead of him. He would have probably got down to the 30, 35-yard line, and he was just going, and last second, one of the Browns linebackers, I forgot who, dove and tripped up his feet where it was only like a 10, 11-yard gain instead. If that linebacker doesn't make that play, I win the game. And I win the freaking fantasy football game. But instead, now I'm sitting here, no fantasy football final for me in that league. Fortunately, I'm in some other leagues, but we will talk all things fantasy football on Saturday, as we will bring in Emmett Wyman, of course, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show. We'll talk all things fantasy. We'll get you guys set up for your for your fantasy football playoffs, for get your roster set, and then we'll go over our best bets at the end too. We've been hitting real hard on the best bets. I don't know if I like anyone in that Thursday game. If I had to lead, I would probably lean on the Raiders at -3 because they have more to play for than the Chargers. But the Raiders have just been all over the place this last couple weeks here, so it's really hard to bet on them. And usually I would say whatever game the Raiders are in, take the over. But now since they fired their defensive coordinator, just like we were talking about with an interim head coach, the Jets they're not firing Adam Gase because they want to keep losing. They don't want an interim to come in and bring that spark, right? Same thing with the defensive coordinator, though. Every game the Raiders have been in over the last 3 weeks have gone over because their defense can't stop anyone. Well, now that you fire your DC, you bring in a new guy, that might spark some energy in the defense. They might play better for a game or two before they go back to the norm of just being a bad defensive team. But it will get them pumped up for a game or two. That's why I'm a little hesitant about the over on that game. So we'll look into the Saturday. Remember, we've got 2 Saturday games. We've got the Denver Broncos and the Buffalo Bills. The just hot Buffalo Bills go 10-3. Lamar Jackson just looks better and better by the game. Another quarterback out of that 2018 draft class, Baker 1, Sam Darnold 3, Lamar 6, Josh Rosen 10, and Lamar Jackson all the way down at 32. Remarkable. So Josh Allen's been getting better and better by the week. It's been awesome to see that. And another guy who probably will have a lot of interviews for head coaching job is the Bills offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, who's done a tremendous job with Josh Allen. He's got his completion percentage up. He's worked on his mechanics, his accuracy, and he's gotten better every year. And you got to give Brian Daboll props for that. Sean McDermott as well. Sean McDermott is a really, really good coach. So that's another name to watch out for. And then the night game on Saturday, you've got the Carolina Panthers heading to Green Bay. Now, this is a good transition for me to talk about the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are now sitting here at 10-3, and they are in the number 1 seed. They are the number 1 seed at this moment for the NFC, right? They're 10-3. The Saints are 10-3 as well. But the Saints lost, remember, on that Sunday night game at home to the Green Bay Packers. So the Green Bay Packers have the head-to-head. The Saints really screwed up by losing that game against Philadelphia. They did, because now the Packers have the Panthers, the Titans, both at home, and then at the Bears. I don't see them losing any of those games. Now, the Titans, they've been strong. The Titans have been playing very well. That's a Sunday night game. I still just don't see the Packers losing. The Packers have been tremendous, all right? So, in all likelihood, I think the Packers hold on to that spot. The Saints, they have Kansas City this weekend. Unless they can pull off the upset, which I don't see it happening, then I think that the Saints lose again, so they'll be 10-4, and then they play the Vikings and at the Panthers. That Vikings one is no give me either, and that's actually on Christmas Day, by the way, which is really cool. That's a 4:30 p.m. kickoff on Christmas Day. The NFL is just trying to own every day of the week here, which is going to be awesome for us, though. But that game will be no gimme either, because the Vikings are also trying to vie for a playoff spot. So look, if they end up beating the Chiefs, then they've got a shot at getting that one back, even though I don't see the Packers losing a game. So I think specifically because the Saints lost to the Eagles, they are now done they're not getting that number 1 spot. I don't see it happening. Now, the Packers could slip up, don't get me wrong, but if the Saints lose to the Chiefs this weekend, which I believe they will, then even if the Packers do slip up, the Saints still will not be able to get that number 1 seed. Now, other than that, you have the Rams sitting there at 9-4. and the Seahawks sitting there at 9-4, which is super interesting because they're in the same division. So whoever wins the division, the other will have to drop down into a wild card matchup, which means they will not get to host a playoff game. The Rams already beat the Seahawks once, so they have the head-to-head, and the Rams have the Seahawks number. You know, that division is so interesting. Every team in that division has another team's number. Like, the Rams have the Seahawks number. For some reason, the Rams are always doing well against the Seahawks. But then the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, they have the Rams number. I mean, they beat the Rams with Nick Mullins in there. They don't even need Jimmy G in there to beat the Rams. For some reason, they know how to beat the Rams really well every time. They just do. They beat them twice this season. The Rams have lost 4 games, and 2 of them have been to the 49ers, who are a very banged-up football team. Very injured football team. Probably the most injured team all season. So then you have the Rams, who also beat up on the Cardinals. Sean McVay, since he's been head coach of the Rams, he has never lost to the Cardinals. Never. He is undefeated against the Cardinals, which is so weird. Then you have the Cardinals, who play the 49ers really well, and they do really good against the 49ers. So it's all these mix match, which is crazy. And then the Seahawks and the 49ers, they always play each other tough, and those games go back and forth. So that division's so interesting, but the Rams will play the Seahawks one more time. They've already beat the Seahawks once. They have the Jets this week. Then they're at the Seahawks, and then they end it versus the Cardinals. I personally think the Rams win out. I think they win out and they go 12-4. I think when it's all said and done, the Packers are going to be 13-3. The New Orleans Saints are going to be 12-4. And the Los Angeles Rams are going to be 12-4. And then I think Washington, who has just been really impressive as of late, ends up winning the division. The NFC East, not the whole NFC. Now, depending on how injured Alex Smith is, because he did get banged up, luckily it seems like it's nothing serious, but if Alex Smith has to miss some time, that could change anything. That could change things up, and the Giants could slip back into that spot of winning the NFC East. But I will say this, and I never wish for injuries, especially for an amazing guy like Alex Smith, who came off almost losing his legs. He literally lost his leg almost. He fought back. And he's been such a leader. The fact that he has been able to turn this team around with Ron Rivera's help and get them at 6-7, almost 500. Remember, we were talking about a couple weeks ago that the NFC East winner is going to win like 5 games total. Well, shoot, they might be able to win 8. Washington truly might be able to win 8 games, which would be remarkable. So I've loved what Alex Smith has done. But with that being said, I'm very excited to see Dwayne Haskins. Remember, Kyle Allen got hurt, so he's out for the year. So Dwayne Haskins had to come in last game against the 49ers and play about a quarter and a half, and he didn't screw things up. Now, granted, the defense was doing most of the stuff because that defense is ferocious. It is real. It is one of the best in the league. They have their defensive line is just causing havoc. Chase Young is looking like that amazing rookie that he really was supposed to be. He just looks awesome. He scored his first defensive touchdown against the 49ers on Sunday. So I don't know, as long as Dwayne Haskins doesn't go out there and lose the game for them, which what I mean by that is throw interception after interception after interception, then I think they'll be fine, right? They do have a tough schedule. They have to play Seattle this week, though. The Giants went into Seattle and won. Seattle's coming to D.C. Can Washington upset Seattle just like the Giants did? I don't know. I think Seattle's going to be a little bit more alert now that that's happened. But we'll see. Seattle and Russell Wilson have not been playing great football these last couple of months. So when it comes to them at 6-7, and you got the Giants at 5-8, the Giants still have to play Cleveland on Sunday Night Football this week. Then they're at the Ravens, and then they're home to the Cowboys, right? So these next 2 games are going to be very, very tough. Very tough. And also, is Daniel Jones really 100%? Because he did not look 100% last week against the Cardinals when they got beat up 26-7. So that's going to be a big question. Is Daniel Jones really 100%? But they're home against a very, very, very hot Cleveland Browns team. Don't you guys wish Odell Beckham was playing? Wouldn't that be awesome? Odell coming back, playing against the Giants, Sunday Night Football, winning team in the Browns this year. 9-4 against a much better, much improved New York Giants team as this last part of the season. That would have been fun. That would have been very, very fun. But this Browns team, they've been hot. They're going to be mad that they lost. They let one get away against their rivals, the Ravens. Can the New York Giants pull up another upset? Then they go to the Ravens, who's going to be a team that is going to have a lot to play for because they need a win out to make the playoffs as well. The Giants might lose 3 in a row here. After we thought that they were on the come up, they were going to win the division, they might lose 3 in a row. Now, granted, we all thought that they were going to lose to Seattle too, and they didn't. They ended up upsetting Seattle. So anything can happen on any given Sunday. That's why we love the NFL, right? So I still think the Packers will go 13-3. I think the Rams and the Saints will win their divisions. And then I think Washington will win the NFC East. And then the wild card teams will be Seattle, will be Tampa Bay, and then it's either going to be Arizona or Minnesota. Now, and then Chicago's still in it as well. Now, Chicago's 6-7, Minnesota's 6-7, and Arizona is 7-6. Arizona currently is in the wild card spot right now, okay? Arizona's last 3 games are home versus the Eagles, home versus the 49ers, at the Rams. They should be able to go 2-1. They should beat the Eagles. I understand the Eagles just beat the Saints, but the Saints' game plan against them was atrocious on defense. I have no clue what the Saints were doing on defense. They played the Jalen Hurts, who is a dual threat quarterback, is a running quarterback. They played him like he was Carson Wentz. They didn't put a linebacker to spy him. They didn't for some reason. They didn't put it to spy him. What do I mean by that? If he starts to take off running, that's your man. You're specifically there to spy on the quarterback. If he takes off running, you go follow him and tackle him. If he doesn't, you can rush him to sack him. Put pressure on him. That's what a spy is. They didn't do that. They just brought normal pressure like he's someone that was just going to stand in the pocket and throw it. And that's why he ran all over that Saints defense. So that is something that was very questionable to me. I did not understand that. But I do think the Cardinals will be like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's look at the film. Let's attack Jalen Hurts and this offense a little bit differently. So I think that they should beat the Eagles, and I think that they should beat the 49ers. That would put them at 9-6. And then I think they lose to the Rams the last game of the season and put them at 9-7. If that's the case, they should make that final wild card spot. They should, because that would put them at 9-7. Minnesota would have to win out to be able to get to that 9-7 mark. And they have the Bears at home this week, then at the Saints, then at the Lions. They should be able to go 2-1. And shoot, they did beat the Saints last year in the playoffs. This is on Christmas Day, remember. Maybe they can upset the Saints and go 3-0. So they are very viable. They lost to the Bucs last week. Their kicker missed 4 field goals and an extra point or something like that. So that really, really screwed them. But they're 100% in shot to still get this playoff spot, but they're going to need a win out unless the Cardinals lose a couple of these games. If the Cardinals lose to the Eagles or the 49ers and Minnesota goes 2-1, Minnesota would be in. Now, Chicago. I do not think Chicago will have a chance. I do like the way Mitchell Trubisky's been playing, but I just think it's a little bit too late for them. They have the Vikings, the Vikings, the Jaguars, and the Packers. Okay? Can they beat the Vikings? I don't know. We'll see. If they can beat the Vikings this week, then they'll have the Jaguars. They'll win that one, and then it will come down to can they beat the Packers to last game of the season. Will the Packers be playing for anything? Maybe they'll be resting their starters. Who knows? Those are things we're going to have to look for. But in the NFC, it's going to come down to that the only spot that will be up for takes, because Tampa Bay is going to take the other spot, and Seattle or the Rams are going to take the other spot. So it's going to come down to that final wild card spot. Will it be Arizona? Will it be Minnesota? Or could possibly Chicago even sneak in? That's what it's come down to. And then the NFC East, Washington or the Giants. Right now, I think it's going to be Washington, but we'll have to see how that plays out. Now, the AFC is much more intriguing. The AFC has way more to it than just what the NFC has. The AFC has about 10 teams fighting for playoff spots. I mean, that's what it feels like, right? You have right now Kansas City 12-1, Pittsburgh 11-2, Buffalo 10-3, Tennessee 9-4, Cleveland 9-4, Indianapolis 9-4, Miami 8-5. Those are all the playoff teams if the season ended today. Baltimore is 8-5 looking in, and Las Vegas is 7-6 looking in. Technically, the Patriots are still alive at 6-7, and the Broncos are still alive at 5-8. But you can definitely mark those two out, because it would take it would be almost impossible for them to get in. Now there's a chance, so you're saying there's a chance, but that's going to take a lot. That's going to take a lot of help for them to be able to get in. So we're mainly looking at the two teams that are looking in right now, Baltimore and the Raiders. They're on the outside looking in. Miami is 8-5 and Baltimore is 8-5. They have not played each other, but for some reason, Miami is in over them through tiebreaker right now. I think it's through conference. They're 5-4 in the conference. Baltimore's 5-5. That could change down the stretch, right? If you look at the Dolphins' schedule, they have home to the Patriots this week. Then they're at the Raiders. That is huge, ladies and gentlemen. At the Raiders. That is two teams fighting for a spot. That game could come down to a lot. And then they're at the Bills. The Dolphins have a very hard schedule. Home to the Patriots, which is no slouch, especially against rookie quarterbacks. They do a great job. At the Raiders, at the Bills. That is three tough games. The Ravens, we've already told you, they have the easiest schedule. They're home to the Jaguars, home to the Giants, at the Bengals. You can pretty much count on the Baltimore going 11-5, winning out unless, some crazy, unforeseeable things happen. Right? So then you have Cleveland at the Giants, at the Jets, versus the Steelers. That last game is going to be very intriguing. So Cleveland has a chance to go 3-0. Definitely 2-1, right? That's what it's looking at. Indianapolis, Texans at the Steelers, home to the Jaguars. They have a great chance to go 3-0 or 2-1, depending on if the Steelers can turn it around. Very interesting. Las Vegas, home to the Chargers, home to the Dolphins, at the Broncos. That's a very feasible 3-0 schedule. All of these teams, and then Tennessee, home to the Lions, at the Packers, at the Texans. All of these teams have a chance to win out. Who's going to take advantage of their opportunities? A couple of them have to play each other, but I'm telling you, the AFC, sit back, buckle up, get your popcorn, get your beer, get your nachos, get your snacks. This is going to be a fun last 3 weeks of the season as we watch what happens in the NFC and, most importantly, the AFC positional matchups, the AFC playoff matchups of who's going to end up where, what seed are you going to end up, and what team is going to fall out and be outside looking in once that Week 17 season ends. I cannot wait for it, and I know you guys can't wait either. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, which is always brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show, write a nice review. That really helps us out. Also, if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone. Have a great week. We'll talk to you again on Saturday, where we'll go over all the Sunday games, look more into the playoff projections and predictions and situations, give you our best bets of the weekend, talk some fantasy football, and talk some college football playoffs, as will be one day away then from Selection Sunday. Can't wait to talk to you then. Have a great week.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.